Hello, everyone, and welcome back to WABAN, the movie and TV show podcast where an expert on the subject discusses things with the average viewer. I'm your host, Nim, and today I am joined by, Murray from The Murray Show. I forget his last name.
So how you doing there, Nim?
I'm doing good.
What brings you on my show today?
Just wanna shoot you, Oh wait, whoops! Spoiler alert.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Perfect. Couldn't have done it
wonderful. Better. Yeah, he's played by Robert De Niro, which is like actually really interesting. When so you might not know this, but this movie, The Joker, or it's not called it's Joker, not The Joker. Mm-hmm. Joker, in the future when they want to reboot it, they're going to call it The Joker. That's how they do, that's how they do movies. It's like when they redo a movie that's been done in the past, or maybe not redo a movie, but like they want to differentiate a title that said there's in '89 there was a movie called Batman. The latest Batman movie is called The Batman. There was a movie called Suicide Squad. Then there was a movie called The Suicide Squad. That's what they.
I hate that so much.
It's like that's the best you could do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess it works, but it's weird.
It works. For record keeping purposes, not for. What movie are you talking about when you say Joker or The Joker? Because nobody's going to remember the difference.
So far, that's a movie titled The Joker doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it will one day. Who knows? But yeah, anyways, back on what I was talking about, which is basically this movie is heavily inspired by two classic Martin Scorsese movies from like the 70s, I believe. Like I haven't seen them, but if when this movie first came out and I was watching a bunch of people review it, that was one of the big things they were saying. They're like, oh, it's has very clear influence from these two particular movies. Those movies are Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, right? Classic Martin Scorsese directed movies from the 70s. The main actor in both of those movies is Robert De Niro. Like when he was younger, obviously, because in the 70s. And Robert De Niro plays Murray in this movie. So
interesting.
It was definitely a very obvious, like clear, like casting choice, like purposeful casting choice for that reason. Because apparently, like if you've seen those movies, the influence is pretty obvious when you watch this movie. Which I haven't seen them. Which they're actually on. So we have a list of potential movies to talk about on the podcast, and I actually did put those two movies on the list. So maybe we'll watch them eventually. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, Robert De Niro is always a good actor. He's been in plenty of Martin Scorsese movies, actually. So those two that I just mentioned, I know he's in a bunch of others that I don't know of, but he's also in Goodfellas, which is the one Martin Scorsese movie that I've actually seen. Which is weird because he's such a big director in like the history of film, and I've only seen one of his movies. But yeah, so I think he still directs new movies sometimes now. So, but yeah, just thought that was an interesting thing. It's definitely a very important thing to note, like when you're talking about a movie, is like, so a lot of times I think the influence that they've had from previous movies is always important to kind of understand
context.
Understand what they're going for and where, kind of and again, also makes it like, oh yeah, that's why they casted Robert De Niro. Like, so yeah. Anyways, we watched Joker. This is the second time I've seen it. I saw it in theaters when it came out in 2019, and I watched it now. Yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't know what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow this movie, like, completely subverted my expectations and also fully met them.
Okay.
Because, like, I knew it was, you know, about the birth of Joker, his origin story and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously it's going to be about a man going insane.
Right.
But I don't know, something about the way that they did it was so, like, it was really well done, but, like, it wasn't what I was expecting them to do.
Mm-hmm. And what what exactly do you mean by that? Or are you able to say?
I'm not even sure at this point. Because, like, I didn't expect the whole thing with him thinking that he was a Wayne.
Yeah. I remember that being a really interesting plot point when I first watched it. Like, thinking like, like, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I don't know if, like, that was I don't know if that, like, if I like it or I don't like it. It's like weird.
It's a unique stressor for him to push him closer to the edge.
Yeah. Well, and then
it does give, like, a unique connection for him to meet Bruce when he's a child, and to, like, build that tension in that way, and to, like, give the audience a bit of Batman when he was young.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting in that sense. And also, like, the fact that his whole, like, clown thing that he inspired is what led to Bruce's parents getting murdered too. Kind of adds to that connection between them. But I also found it a little strange. I don't know. I always liked to picture sort of Joker and Batman as being closer to the same age, I guess. Personally, or maybe, like, I don't know.
That would make sense.
Like, I guess it's never really stated outright because, like, again, Joker typically doesn't have an origin story. So there's no telling, like, oh, how old is he? Nobody knows how, you know. But I always just kind of pictured it that way personally, I guess. I don't know, you know. Which it's interesting that they try to go the route of sort of the Joker taking a part in the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. Not directly, he doesn't directly do it, but it's interesting that they go that route because this isn't the first time that's idea has been done before, actually. I don't know if you know much about the older Batman movies, but in the 1989, the 1989 Batman movie actually was done where Joker was the person who killed his parents, and he later on, you know, became the Joker years later, but he wasn't the Joker yet. It was like, you know, when he was, you know, which is weird because it's like,
it's an obvious connection to make considering that he's Batman's main villain.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to link him to Batman's origin story as well. But
yes.
Also, there's no point in it, really.
Yeah, because, like, I mean, the whole idea of the death of his parents is that it was just some guy.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the Joker, you know, in the 89 Batman movie, the Joker was just some guy when he did it. But, like, some thug. But still, it's just kind of like, I don't know. Because traditionally, the name of the guy who killed his parents is Joe Chill. You know, he's just some thug named Joe. But yeah, so this version was interesting though. And one little detail I noticed too is when the riots are going on, and the clown riots, and like you see the theater that is him and his parents come out of. It says like before you even see them come out of it, it says like what's playing. It's like some Zorro show, and in the comics originally, that's what they were watching. And like that's so it's like an automatic. So if you know the comics well enough, and you see that before they even come out, you're like, oh, I see what's happening here. You could probably already kind of.
I was watching that scene, and obviously, you can tell what's about to happen if you just even know vaguely Batman's origin story. But I don't know if like I've seen other movies or shows that showed that scene, but they got it really, really close to what I remember from like other things showing it. Like scarily close that like I thought I had seen the scene before.
Are you saying down to like things like
camera angle, the alley, like the view of the alleyway as they were walking into it, all of it.
It's like the pearls being ripped off of his mom. Yeah. Well, that the whole thing of like the pearls being ripped off has always been like super iconic imagery for that scene, like in every version. I think, probably starting from the original comics, and then it's weird. Yeah.
I found it so like weird and on the nose that like obviously there's similarities like that between all these iterations of this scene, but I remembered the exact camera angle, and I don't know if they mimicked a specific one, and that's just the thing that I'm remembering. But it was so eerily familiar.
Yeah,
it could really helped the scene.
Well, interestingly, there are at least four live action versions of this scene. There is, if you count Gotham, the TV show, the live action show Gotham, there might be 5. I don't remember how much of it they showed. They definitely probably did. I haven't seen that show in a long time. I only watched like the first season years ago, but so maybe 5. But there's the '89 Batman movie, which I was mentioning earlier. There's Batman Begins, which is the movie that comes before The Dark Knight, which we already talked about on this podcast.
Right.
Then there's, and I believe one of the DC EU movies when they were trying to do like the live action Justice League and stuff. I think it might have been Batman versus Superman. They showed like a flashback scene because it's supposed to be like an older Batman at this point in that movie. But they showed like a flashback of and showed it. And then there's this movie that shows it. So yeah, that's like it's been done so many times that it's like such a weird, it's just such an iconic scene. And it's like interestingly enough, the new Batman movie did not do it.
No.
They just decided, you know what, we've seen this scene enough times already. What's the point in doing it again?
I did also like, because obviously Joker caused the riot that was happening, which led to the Waynes getting killed. But I did like the link between when he was on the Murray Show, or the Murphy Show. What is it?
The Murray Show.
Murray Show. Yeah. He says his final joke when he shoots him, ending with, "You get what you fucking deserve." And the killer said the exact same thing. And I just really liked that touch, that little detail.
Well, it's likely that the killer said that mimicking him because he may have been watching the TV and actually saw him say that on TV, Yeah, and then like at the end, he like goes up to the camera, right up to the camera, and he's like, "Well, he's about to say the little catchphrase that Murray says at the end of his show. That's life." Yeah. So this is I think one of the most interesting things about this take on the character is really showing sort of like a tragic thing where you almost feel bad for him. I mean, obviously you at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, he's doing some terrible shit, but at the same time, you're like, it's just seeing what pushed him to that is kind of,
Yeah, his progression to becoming the Joker, from just being stressed out with the world and dealing with his laughing condition to starting to murder people and not caring, to finding it funny, and like it never reached like the pinnacle of Joker, right, where he's just laughing about everything.
Yeah.
But it got really close towards the end.
It did, and I think there were definitely little glimpses, even earlier on in the movie, where I was like, "That's a Joker moment." Like when he is like he gets fired from his job, and he's going to like pick up his stuff, and he's just like leaving, and he's just like, "Oh wait, I forgot to punch out." Punches the clock thing, the punch clock.
Yeah.
And just punches it off the thing. There we go. Like that was clearly a big joke. That's something Joker would do. Like I could see Joker doing like, "Oh wait, I forgot to punch out." Punch something, It's a very clearly Joker sense of humor right there. But yeah, there was definitely like little glimpses of it, but he never, I feel like, goes full on Joker. Yeah, and a lot of it, he still kind of has that like unsure of himself kind of nervousness.
Yeah. And there's also still, I saw it especially on the Murray Show, the separation between him finding everything funny and him being like an angry, aggressive psychopath.
Yeah.
Because like he was laughing through the show a lot, but then he'd switch to like full aggression. Yeah. But the Joker doesn't really have the separation between those two things. And like they were slowly merging throughout the movie, but they never quite became one.
Yeah, I guess you could say the final moment of the movie is kind of him fully he's like running through he very clearly, or it's implied that he killed the woman who was like talking to him, interrogating him or whatever.
As he dances around the hallway.
He's dancing around. Somebody starts chasing him around, and it's like playing this happy music around it. You know what I mean? Like with the blood stains on, on his shoes. Like, yeah. I guess the movie's kind of maybe trying to portray that as like his final, like, yep, he's the Joker now, which, yeah, I thought was pretty good. One thing I will say is like, I think this is a pretty good movie, but like I couldn't see them continuing with this version. Like I feel like I am almost glad that they didn't try to continue like a whole kind of Batman universe with this version of the Joker. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it works really well as its own movie, kind of like exploring the character in an interesting way, exploring kind of like, oh, what a possible origin for the character. But like, I couldn't see it working in the long term as like, we're going to then do a Batman movie that takes place in this universe where he's the main, this character is the main villain, played by this actor. Like I feel like, I don't know how you feel about that, but
I get what you mean. Like, I don't see the continuation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if done well, it definitely could happen. But at the same time, I think it was very clear that this movie was made with the intent of just making one singular movie.
I feel like if they had tried to continue and like go the few extra steps to him being like full of Joker, actively doing, Joker schemes, I don't see how they would have done it from there.
Mm-hmm.
However, if they did something like, there's a few years cuts, Batman emerges, Joker learns about Batman, and then just goes, oh, that's a fun thing to mess with. I could see that happening.
Yeah. I guess the thing that's hard for me to get behind with this version is throughout the movie, he never feels like the type of person that could be the big sort of, like, I guess the intelligence of the Joker, oh, he has all this stuff planned out. He has these big grand things planned, just to cause chaos. Like in this movie, he definitely feels like, I don't know.
He seems smaller scale, which makes sense because it's just an origin.
Yeah.
But you don't see how he could build up to it.
But he just seems more mentally out of control. Obviously the Joker is mentally insane, but he's more in control typically. He's more methodical about how he does things. He's able to, like this version I couldn't see being a threat to Batman. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I guess that's kind of where,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. The Joker as a whole is kind of like, he most certainly is unstable and impulsive at times. But all his plans and schemes are deceptively like complicated and well thought out and methodical.
Yeah.
Because they usually end up almost working.
Yeah.
Or completely working.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like that's why. I think that's one of the main reasons. Like I couldn't see this version of the Joker being like that. Because throughout this movie, most of what happens is just kind of not really in his control. Like obviously the first thing that pushed him was, he killed those guys because he happened to have a gun because the guy gave him a gun, and it was just kind of because the guys were messing with him and beating him up, and he's like, I've, out of self-defense kind of. And I think as it went on, he just kind of, he just kind of figured it out as he went in a way, I guess. Like he didn't, which is also somewhat the way the Joker is, where he just kind of like goes along with what happens and sees, he does that. That's part of the Joker as well, but still like that kind of methodical planning that I think of,
I don't know. You mentioned him being methodical, and I'm just like, Joker's not methodical. He's like weird and impulsive and insane. And then I'm like, no, but if he wasn't, none of this stuff he would do would work.
Right.
So you have a point.
Yeah, exactly. He does plan things, but he plans them so that he can cause chaos and ruin other people's plans, I guess. Mm-hmm. Or like he at least plans enough to actually make an impact. Yeah, because like in this, it's like, when he went on the show, I don't even think he originally was planning on shooting Murray.
Right, he seemed to be planning out, knock and shooting himself in the head.
Shooting himself, yeah. But then as the show progressed, he got more and more pissed off at Murray to the point where, and he started, it was on the show where he started to think, you know what, like, I'm going to make this big statement and just shoot him. Yeah. Which I did think it was a little weird. Like, I'm like, how, they didn't have people like check to like make sure, there was no weapons or something before letting him on the show.
Yeah.
Like, seemed a little weird. Cause I was like, you'd think that would be like part of the procedure of like, especially some random guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like that they don't know anything about, you know.
Movie magic.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, stuff like that is just like little like plot hole type things. It's like small, not really an issue, but it's like, you know, yeah. Yeah. I think another thing I remember being a very interesting plot point was the whole thing with him and his sort of, I guess, fake girlfriend, you know?
Yeah. The delusion that he had.
I'm actually interested in your perspective. Like, at what point did you realize that it was probably all fake?
I mean, she came to confront him about stalking her, and that worked out way too well.
Yeah. From that point, you're like, what?
Yeah,
what is wrong with her? She's insane too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was very confused. I was just like, maybe there's an explanation for it. I'll just shrug it off for now. And same thing with when he just randomly barged into her apartment like that.
Well, yeah, and she just kind of continued to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
In the certain scenes, she would just be there as if like, oh yeah, she's just like his girlfriend, his supportive girlfriend. And you're just like, okay, like, oh, that's just like thing now. Okay, whatever.
Like every single scene had a bit of a, like, something's not quite right here. Because, you know, him barging into her apartment, her confronting him about stalking her, that shouldn't have gone that well when he was very clearly like kind of messing up at the comedy place and she was like smiling as if she was happy for him. It's like, what? This doesn't quite add up.
Yeah.
And so like the entire time I'm trying to piece together what is happening, and then it finally reveals that like she doesn't know who he is at all.
And it was just kind of a fantasy that he was having. Like she knows of him as just the neighbor down the hall, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like she knows his name and that he has that he lives with his mother, and that's like all she really knows about him. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting too because it kind of makes sense because it's set up very early on that he has these like fantasies in his head all the time, right? With the because him and his mother are watching the Murray Show, and then it just goes into this whole sequence of him just imagining that he's in the audience and that Murray points him out and brings him up on stage and has this whole big like, you know, oh, Murray's like his father figure in that scene, like becomes like his new father figure in that scene, you know, whatever. So it's actually like, and that was very early on in the movie. So it was established right then and there. Like, yeah, this is a character who just kind of has a lot of crazy fantasies in his head.
Right.
And like delusions, you know. And that's, yeah, so when it happens, it makes sense.
When you talking about all this just kind of made me link a few things in my head. Tom Wayne, Murray, the fake girlfriends. I'm debating including the mother, but I'm not quite sure. They're all like representative because like Tom Wayne is like society. He's trying to run for mayor. His mother is constantly building him up as like, he'll help, he'll do this and that, he'll make the city better. And then he meets him and, you know, he punches him in the face.
Yeah.
The girlfriend is self-explanatory. He fantasized about that. You know, it's like a warm relationship. Oh, and I guess Tom Wayne has the whole thing about like, could have been his father, and he was completely rejected by that. Like all three of them, he is a representative of like certain relationships that he could use to support him that just completely abandon him and reject him and hurt him.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, because he sees Thomas Wayne. He's like, oh, maybe he's really my father, and he needs that father figure, and so he's going to look at him for that. Same way as like he had that fantasy on the Murray show of seeing Murray as like kind of a father figure. So,
which Murray later turned against him too.
The problem is, yeah, exactly. That's the thing, is like he's looking for this, and it's kind of the whole general theme of this, where it's like you're looking for help. You're looking for something from society, but society as a whole rejects you. It was kind of the main theme of this. And that's just kind of keeps you down and whatever, which is what kind of drives him to, what he does.
And I just thought of a thing. I can definitely include the mother in this, because at first he's like, she loves me. She'll never do anything to hurt me. There was that small moment of when he like laughs at his killings on the news, and she says it's not funny. But then he learns that she's also delusional. She let him be abused, which I think the implication is that his physical abuse, is the cause of his laughter condition.
Potentially. Yeah. So I guess
she
it could
let
be
that happen, which is, immediately breaks the entire relationship that they have, because he thought that, she would never do anything like that to him.
Yeah, which is what leads to him killing her.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment where he fully embraced the insanity, because throughout the movie, he's kind of trying to fight against it in a way, when he's like laughing uncontrollably, he's trying to fight it. He's trying to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I have this condition. He's taking all these meds. He's trying to get more meds. He feels like he's not having enough. And then like this moment, he goes, I always thought my life was a tragedy. Now I realize it's a fucking comedy. Kills her. And then he's like, I'm embracing the insanity. It's, he stops taking his medication. He just kind of allows the laughter to just become like, that's his thing. And like, oh, me laughing at bad times or whatever isn't a bad thing, he's like, those things are funny too that I'm laughing at, kind of, in a way. Like,
yeah,
the bad things that happen, I think it's hilarious, like,
I didn't realize until you said it, but there is a really good progression of that from that scene, because like he's talking to her when he's about to kill her, saying that like, you always said my laughter was a condition, that it was something bad, but it's not, it's who I am. He says the line, his life is not a tragedy, it's a comedy. Kills her. And in the next few scenes, when his work friends come over, he says he feels better after not taking his medication.
Yep. And then,
I also really love the scene. He locks the door to let them in, kills the one, and like, you're constantly worried he's gonna kill the other one too. And he's just like, no, I'll let you go on ahead. And he just lets him struggle for a bit trying to open the door.
It's like,
it was like,
Arthur, can you come help me? I was
so heartbroken at that moment, because oh no, he's gonna die. He's gonna kill him too.
He just opens the door for him. You were the only one who was ever nice to me, and then
kiss on the forehead and lets him go.
Yeah,
it's like, no, that is perfectly Joker.
Yeah, it is. That's I think that's shows you the kind of unpredictable side of Joker, of like, is he gonna kill you? Is he not? Who knows? Makes you think of like a classic moment from like the cartoons and stuff, where like he has like a gun and he pulls the trigger, he's gonna kill you, but it just comes out with a little flag that says bang on it. And he's like, oh, haha, You know, like, is he gonna kill you? Is he not? Who knows? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And then I also think the whole laughing condition is an interesting thing for the Joker as well, because like,
yeah,
it almost creates a new context to, because like obviously the classic, you know, the Joker's laugh is a classic thing. Like, you know, whenever there's like a new actor who plays the Joker or something, the big thing you're always thinking about is like, oh, how is his Joker laugh gonna sound? You know, that's like, you got to get the laugh right. That's an important part of the character. But this gives like a new context to it, where it's like, you think like imagining other versions of the Joker having a similar origin, or like, you know, a similar condition. It's like, oh, so every time he laughs, it's maybe just uncontrollable, but he's just kind of embracing it now. So it sounds like it's, you know, he's doing it on purpose, but it's actually uncontrollable, but he's just kind of like letting it out, because he's like, yep, even though this thing that happened is not funny to the normal person, well, I'm laughing at it, so I guess it is funny. I'll embrace it. You know, it's almost like it kind of creates like a new context to that, which is interesting. And then like, also the fact that like another classic thing the Joker does is he will use like a laughing gas on his victims to like make them laugh uncontrollably. It's almost like, if you look at it from this perspective, it's almost like, oh, he has that condition and he's like, I want you to know what it's like, almost. Or like, I'm going to give you like a taste of what it's like to laugh uncontrollably. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting thing.
I can see a lot of positives and negatives to it when it's in the context of other versions of Joker. Because on one hand, it kind of dilutes him. Like, oh, he's forced to do it. That's not actually what he wants to do.
Yeah, there's that as well. Right. But it also could be interesting as well.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and then it actually could make it more interesting in a sense, too, because it's like, I don't think every time he laughed in this movie, it was because of his condition. No. There were times where it was probably a genuine laughter. So maybe it's like that, where it's like, oh, now you don't know which ones are which laughs are genuine. So like now, like think about it in the context of, again, like let's say the animated series Joker. Every time he laughs, just imagine, oh, is that uncontrollable, or is it an actual natural laugh, like a genuine laugh? You know, it's like, you know, it's
yeah.
It's kind of like, is it or is it not? You know,
it adds to his unpredictability. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to think of other things I want to say about it. Yeah, I think overall, Joaquin Phoenix, he's the actor who played the Joker in here. I think he did really good in the role. I don't know if I remember right. I think he may have either was nominated for Best Actor or won. I think he was at least nominated. I'm actually curious. Yeah. I'm gonna look that up, actually. So it would be the 2020 Oscars, because this movie came out in 2019. Yeah, it was. Yep. He won Best Actor for this role.
I mean, he deserves it, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember there were people comparing sort of this version of the Joker to other versions. They're like, oh, how does it stack up against, like, let's say the Heath Ledger version, or, you know, other ones. And I don't know, I think it's hard to do that just because it's a very, very different version.
Right. All those are fully realized, and this isn't.
This is a very much an early sort of very nervous, not completely sure of himself. Like when you see like the Heath Ledger Joker in The Dark Knight, that Joker is fully confident in himself.
Mm-hmm.
He is fully knows what he's doing when he talks. He's not, there's no hesitation. There's no, he's not reserved in any way. He's just he's fully confident, fully out there, which is, like what the Joker, classically is like.
A dog doesn't hesitate when it goes to chase a car.
Right, exactly. But this one is very much more reserved. He's more, quiet,
Mm-hmm.
more, in his head a lot of times, just kind of like, because it's the origin. It's him kind of being driven to madness, driven to that level of madness that, you have to be the Joker. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely very difficult to compare the acting of both of them.
Yeah.
Which I think Heath Ledger won an Oscar for his performance too. It wasn't Best Actor because technically Best Actor goes for like the leading role, so it might have been Best Supporting Actor. I'm guessing, but he did well. He was dead when he won the Oscar, so he didn't receive it, sadly. But But yeah, I think so. So it's interesting that like both of these versions of the Joker had won an Oscar for it. So I think that's cool.
I imagine, obviously I don't know, but I imagine that this version that we're talking about that's like not fully realized is, I imagine it's more difficult to portray that because it starts off with just a mentally ill man, which can be difficult to portray as in itself, but the end result already, and how you need to progress through the movie and, embrace more of the end result and more of the insanity and like the sickening comedy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine like constantly developing that and changing it throughout the movie in this already very extreme character, like getting that build up right. I imagine that's very difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, yeah, there's a very clear reason he won the Oscar for Best Actor for this movie, Yeah.
Because it's not even like a lot of characters throughout movies are consistent. Even in other versions of Joker, he's pretty much consistent, even if he is the Joker.
Right.
But this one, he's developing from this starting point to the Joker with all these jumps in the middle and all these weird variations that you have to go through.
Yeah. It's definitely a very different kind of performance for sure. Because it's sort of like, let's say Heath Ledger has to portray a fully realized personality, whereas this has to Joaquin Phoenix in this movie has to portray a slowly developing personality that's slowly developing over the course of the movie. Yeah, that makes sense.
They did do really good showing the development, though.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember him just dragging things out of the fridge, just throwing everything on the ground, and then just climbing in and shutting it.
Yeah, that just happened in a scene, and there's no like extra context to that scene.
Mm-hmm.
He just does it when he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. I think I was gonna say something and I don't remember what it was.
Aw.
Darn.
Insanity of Joker?
I mean, Insanity of Joker is pretty insane.
I'm just trying to give you context to jog your memory, but...
Yeah, no, the movie definitely portrays the whole slow descent into madness thing very well. And it's interesting too, because it's like a big part that maybe pushed him even further than before is like he obviously had these programs to help him, these city funded programs,
that
to help him,
abandoned him,
that then were cut because of the just it kind of really plays into the idea of he is a product. The Joker is a product of Gotham City's, just the way it exists, of its, because Gotham City is not a nice place to live, unless you're rich, unless you're one of the rich people, right? That's kind of the whole point of Gotham City, right? Is that it's this horrible, crime-ridden place where the rich kind of, build off of the poor, and there's a lot of obviously organized crime that's kind of running the city in a lot of ways too, and it's just not good. But it's like that system is what causes somebody like the Joker to exist. Yeah.
You definitely have a point there. He potentially develops this laughing condition from a young age because of his mother's neglect. Then when he's like, as an adult, he has to take care of his mother. He has this job that nobody respects him for, that, kids on the street are beating him up over. It all just points to things happening to him. And like, he's trying to do things, he obviously is.
Yeah.
But it never feels like he's actually doing anything. It just feels like things are happening to him.
Yeah. And it's like the only way he can take control over his life, where it's not just things happening to him, is by, forcing things to happen himself. But by doing that, he has to, it's like becoming the Joker is what allows him to just kind of be free and be able to just kind of, make things happen for himself, not just let life happen to him. He says he spent his entire life, he's like, my whole life, I didn't even know if I existed. He just kind of is just, nobody pays attention to him. He just kind of exists to exist. And that's it. But now it's like he has this kind of, now I'm going to actually take control of my life. Yeah.
Well, okay. He's at the point in his life where he doesn't feel like he exists. Everything's just happening to him. And then there's the scene on the train where he kills the 3 dudes. And that is like a just snap impulsive decision on his end, right?
Right.
But after like the adrenaline dies down in that moment, it's very much a thing of him realizing that, oh, I did that and I don't feel bad about it. And it's something that I did and not that's something that happened to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which then builds on, because he's like, that's what it's what motivated him to say that he does exist to the social worker. And he sees it popping up on the news everywhere, and he's like, oh, I'm finally actually being seen, which he also says to the social worker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's just a spark to him. Like, oh, he realizes what he can do now to make himself feel better. And it just snowballs from there.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing. I guess the whole kind of snowball butterfly effect thing too. When you look at, like, in the very beginning of the movie, there's a scene, the one guy gives him a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like you need help to protect yourself, whatever. Okay. Which seems like a simple thing, like, oh, a guy just gives him a gun. But when you really think about it, that small moment is what caused everything, right? Like, if he didn't have the gun with him, he wouldn't have shot those guys on the subway, which wouldn't have
gotten
started the riots. He wouldn't have gotten fired from his, him bringing the gun to the hospital. But yeah, those riots wouldn't have started because of the gun. He wouldn't have had, even if he did end up on the Maury show, not Maury show, that's a real life show, the Murray show, even if he did end up on the Murray show, he wouldn't have had a gun to shoot him, or maybe even would have been driven to that point had the other stuff not happened. So it's like just a small choice of just giving him a gun was enough to cause all of this, which is interesting. It's like, I don't know, the impact of one small thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Well, it was like, it also kind of gave him a sense of power as well that he never had. Like, just having a gun isn't, like, because remember, he's sitting in his house, like, kind of playing with it, like I don't know.
It's interesting that you bring up that scene, because I was just thinking about it too, because I realized the stark difference between that scene and when he shot Murray. Because at first he's playing around with this gun, he accidentally fires it, and he starts panicking.
Right.
But then the scene where he kills Murray, he is full confident, not a care in the world, sits there basking in it for a moment, stands up, does it again, just throws it down on the table, and just goes up to the camera and just makes a joke.
Yep, he's just like, well, yep, goes up to the camera. That's life. Yeah. It is. I think the progression of it is done very well. Overall. Yeah. It does, like, knowing that this is heavily inspired by, like, Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, those movies I had mentioned in the beginning, makes me want to watch those movies.
Yeah, I don't know what either of them are about, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I think they might. Yeah. I think they might somewhat deal with, or at least I know Taxi Driver, I think, somewhat deals with, like, a guy in society who's, like, looked over and is, not doing well, kind of might resort to, like, crime or something because of it. So it's like that similar type of thing. It's like a slow descent because of the way society treats you. I think it's that similar type of thing. Maybe both of the movies have a similar type of idea of, I don't really remember, but we might be able to watch them at some point on the podcast, because like I said, they are on our list that I created. But yeah. I think there was, like, one other thing I wanted to mention. I thought the choice of making it that he's like his job is being, like, a clown. Like, I guess they're, like, clowns for hire. Like, you could just hire a clown from this place. Like, hire a clown to hold your sign. Hire a clown to come to the children's hospital to cheer them up. Hire.
I mean, it's a fitting start for the Joker.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is it makes sense, and it gives a reason why the first time he shoots somebody and kills people on the train, why he was wearing a clown uniform at the time, because it was his job. And then also what eventually why he dressed like a clown on the Murray Show. So in which obviously is like, so it's like it's a good place to kind of create like why he develops the persona of the Joker. It's for that reason, but also because he's, he wants to be a stand-up comedian. He wants to tell jokes for a living, right? So it's like that's how he becomes the Joker, because of those two things kind of added together. So makes sense.
It's just, I mentioned before how the Joker has no separation between his comedy and his like insane aggression.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and you talking about that just really shows that. Just like he does all this, he wants to be a comedian. That is what he wanted to do.
And in a way, he is now. Like,
well, I mean, he views himself as one, probably.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. He thinks he's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Think about like the Joker in literally every story with the Joker. He thinks he's hilarious. He's doing it because he's doing it to kind of just be like, this is fun. This is hilarious. Like, what if I did this? This would be pretty funny,
Mm-hmm. He even mentioned it. I think he said something along the lines of, you people decide what is good and bad the same way you decide what is funny and not. But he found killing those 3 guys to be hilarious, and he was tired of pretending that it's not.
Yeah, and he's
so,
yeah.
To nobody else he's funny, but to him, he's having a blast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the gist of the Joker, of what the
Mm-hmm.
Joker is. The Joker is just having fun fucking with society and killing people. But like in fun, creative ways, not just killing them, but like, yeah.
He's the epitome of fuck around, find out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like I guess the most recent thing we saw with the Joker in it was last week. There was episodes of the Justice League we watched with the Joker in, where he just kind of, he sets up bombs throughout the city for the Justice League to find and makes a whole TV show thing out of it. He's like, ooh, wouldn't it be funny if I did this like TV show thing and they had to stop bombs before they killed people?
That would be reason funny. To do that, yeah.
Yeah, like he's not gaining anything like physically out of any of this. He's not gaining money out of this or power or whatever out of the things he does. He's gaining just entertainment, just pure entertainment. Like, that's the Joker.
It almost makes you think, how does like the Justice League and Batman view the Joker as a threat? Because everybody else, I bet they need to keep an eye on to make sure that they're not doing anything. But the Joker is kind of like, we can let him go. He'll let us know if he's up to anything.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like, he's not going to do things secretively because that wouldn't be fun. He wants to make a big spectacle of it. Yeah.
But if he ever did anything secretively, he would probably get away with it.
Right. Well, it's kind of, this movie kind of gives a good origin to that in a way, because it's like his final thing he does, the final person he kills in the movie when he kills Murray, it's a big spectacle. It's on the Murray Show, which is like, a super popular show in Gotham that everybody's watching. And he's like, yep, here it is. I'm going to shoot him, and then he goes up to the camera. That's life. Like, he's making a show out of it. It's not just killing people and committing crimes. It's, I'm going to make a big spectacle of it. I'm going to make it a show. And I'm going to make it entertaining. That's the gist of what the Joker is as a character. So yeah. I don't know if I have a lot more to say about it.
I think I'm all good. I did just have the thought, though, that the Joker's like the perfect story villain. Like, because the Joker doesn't have an end goal most of the time. It is just to make things interesting, which is perfect for making a show or any other story interesting.
Right, yeah. And it kind of creates this idea of like, oh, there's no like end in sight with it either. Like some villains might have a specific motivation. So it's like, oh, if they complete that motivation, then it's like, oh, well, what more are they going to do? You know, Joker, there's no end to what he does. He's just going to, this is the way he is. And this is what he does for fun. This is his life. He's going to, as long as he is still kicking, still alive, still around, he's going to continue doing this.
Right.
You know?
Other villains, it's like they have a reason for a power struggle. But the Joker, the reason is the power struggle. Just like how it is for a story as a whole. You want the power struggle because that's what's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's partially why he's such a difficult villain for Batman as a character, because Batman is very much logical thinking, trying to understand the villains is a big part of Batman, is trying to understand them, trying to solve a mystery. Oh, why are they doing this? What's the motivation? Who's in, whatever. Like he's a detective. He's trying to solve that mystery. He's also trying to, in general, just kind of, figure out why. But it's like, oh, well, how are you going to do that if there is no big mystery of the Joker? Like he just is the Joker. He just is, there's no reason for it. Part of solving a mystery is, what's the motivation? Okay, there's no motivation. So where's the mystery? Very, very good. There's a very clear reason why he's like the most popular villain, the most popular comic book villain of all time. Like it's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah.
Like he's just very unique, I guess. Not even just the most popular comic book villain of all time. He's probably quite possibly the most popular villain of all time. One of, at least.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he's just perfect for just making an interesting story.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know if I have much more to say about this movie. I like it. I don't know if it's the type of movie I would like rewatch a lot. Because it can be kind of hard to watch, because realistically it is kind of depressing, a lot of the movie. It is
Yes,
hard to watch a lot of it. But so I don't know if it's a movie that I would like rewatch a lot, but it is good at what it attempts to do, what the movie is trying to be. It's very good at that, I think. So yeah, I don't know, I don't have a lot more to say about it other than that. Do you have anything to add?
I'm all good. Nah, I'm perfectly fine.
All right. So yeah, that was the Joker. Actually, no, Joker. It's not the Joker. That was Joker. So anyways, thank you for listening to this week's episode of WABAN. You can listen to a new episode every single Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we are going to continue talking about Justice League. We finished Justice League, actually, but we're going to continue by talking about Justice League Unlimited, which is the sequel show to the Justice League. So, so there's 3 seasons of that. Each one is 13 episodes, so we'll probably do an entire season at once with that. So if you want to be able to join in on the discussion, you can go ahead and watch the episodes we're watching by then, so you understand the context of what we're talking about if you want to next week. So that's exciting. And I feel like I had something else to say. Oh yes, my brain is like,
you'll get there. You'll get there.
It's like you go from discussion mode to outro mode, and it's like, hard to make the switch. So there's multiple places you can listen to this podcast, including our YouTube channel, which is called WABAN. And there's a link in the description to that YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. And there's also some gaming videos on that channel, specifically Portal and Portal 2. We are going to do more gaming videos eventually when we find the time. It's been a very busy time for both of us, so it's been very hard to find time to do that. But eventually we will. So definitely go subscribe so you'll be ready when we do. And check out the ones we already do have. And yeah, you can also listen to the podcast on multiple different audio platforms, including things like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and many more. You can also check out my YouTube channel, which is called NIM TV. That's NIM TV. There's a link in the description to that as well. Recently, I've been trying to upload at least one new video a month. I do mostly just any video relating to like movies and stuff like that for the most part. So yeah, my latest video that I'm going to be working on now that should come out pretty soon, might be out by the time this podcast episode is out, I'm not sure, but should be out pretty soon by the end of the month, is actually involving Batman as well. So I am starting a series on my YouTube channel where I look at reviews, react to looking at like negative reviews of good movies that I really like. So and just kind of reacting to them, whether it's negative reviews on like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, Metacritic, other places, basically. So I just think that would be maybe an entertaining thing to do. So the movie I'm doing is going to be The Batman, which is the latest Batman movie that came out, mainly because I really like that movie, and I think it'd be fun to look at some negative reviews of it and react to them, maybe make fun of some of them. Maybe I'll learn something new. I don't know. We'll see. So definitely check out my YouTube channel so you're ready for that new video and any other new video I come out with. So yeah, anyways, thank you for listening to WABAN this week. I've been Nim.
And I'm Cub.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.